다른 애들이 당한 주디 남조를 진행와 아니 마 텔레야 지 최세로 자기 니니부를 차리야래 아니 다 그것은 쉬운 신 근데 남조를 진행와 차상하지마 자지기 and Cheshire Chevy in the Imine that the cover Cheva. See, Lenke Denia Susmado Dendero Josmare and the Lustan and Dang Eliabe, Casatur Machi, and it but Patadova Gilia, Samshas and Jugmentros,
So today is the second day of teaching on the precious garland of the spring path. As I had said yesterday, even though there is the plan to complete teachings on this particular text, but it seems quite obvious that we will not be able to finish it, and to rush through it would be just simply like just delivering a message. And so with that in mind, anyway, we will go over as much as possible within the time we have.
다들이야 아니 달로니 동업계 권이야 아니 담바샤게 승기 아니 지된도圈에 에너지 때문에 우니에 봐 우니에 안드네 다 중부르만은 봐 지 뱅고 밥을 써서全세 에너지 티버 침벽이 남수디네 야ser베 다 된저베다 최경고 다 된저베 남바상계비 최대 에는 고 야가네 다르세 에너지지 에시게 유주 타테방 뭐지랴 상계 된베 우니에버지 총이버래 안디나네 다 배대 임비는 다 뒤주 듬버게바 근데 지금 나로려야 에너지 된베 우니에네 ane ji gyar ge ka de ne dizu ane ji phe ge le ya gya ji gi ngo zam ne ndo na ji phe le ya ane ji sang gi den ba an ti bo chi jong a de je ba yong su zo chang ma no de ji ta ya gi du ji chong mo yim re
the completely awakened one, the line of the Sakyas, the perfect Buddha, turned the profound wheel of the Dharma, and that was the beginning of the great epoch of the teachings of the Buddha. And since then, not long before the Buddha's passing away, great and prominent masters like Nagarjuna and others, and played important roles in the flourishing of the Buddha Dharma, the first beginning in the land of India, and then spreading into a number of countries in the Asian region where the first inception or beginning of the Dharma took place. And around the 7th and 8th century, the auspicious beginning of the coming of Dharma into Tibet, and due to the work of prominent masters, the profound words of the Buddha, and various different aspects of the teachings of Buddhism, the spread through the translation of it into the Tibetan language. In essence, all the teachings of the Buddha, the Mahayana principles, and up to that of the Vajrayana means, all came into Tibet and remained intact.
미세의 추구 타대브르시라 매베 수시다 된 템방아다르체 안 템바치더 걸리야 아네다 림진 가르르다지 템바치더는 고츠 안데네 림베체네 아네다 초가담베 안 템바 다르체데야네 조지 반데 어디샤 갸르네 덴창 엔 벽유리아 덴창체 엔 가담비 조 가담비스 다든지 총이브레 안 데네 림베체네 엔다 별이야지 가쇼야지 나리여기 간다라지 나 닝메기 가쇼 쇠예베 토리아 안 데네 림베체네 디반데 사야바나 안 다나신 네 그유바당 안데 내겐데바당 데네 데라 소베다 주유 지체미로 뭐샤 지 충분히브레 다 간다야 안데데지 추유규바 선한장도 되게 타대버디 야가네 지 추유 타대버지 별이야 총내 에너지 추유 타대버규바 버지 있으마래 아니 야가네 충분히 나바상게베 에너 추유 데 직세 말하다 직벌하지 않는 별이야 총 될래야다 한다 다 망체 라메지 댄서 처럼 좋아당 안 다나 신지 라마도 규베 체면 좋아 제다 민족을 때내지 야지 추규 민족의 소리지 총마마도 된게 차려야 버지지 상물로지 최규바 빈주 만제바당 아니 미지 난도 미지바 버지 유서만에 다들 인도산에 간다야다 벼 간적의 종기 지금 남바상계 배 때버디 오늘 다 가들 가셔야 되지 고군이 아니 비좀 사버럽시 다들지 다르지 뒤다대 봐도 이미네요 아니 지지다 벼카와 간제비 대면 휴스怎么样吧那第三就是里面呢아니 진 점리 정신기 남바상계배 아니 추규지 차리요 봐 안들이 인도산에 다 되게 상월로 원기 지추게 로베 대주 꾸준히 되는 총시다 아니 벼간진 정수 패배 아니 추리매배 딘지 계신다마 탐지기 아니 투지 치료를 되는 총대비임데 스타스업시라래 안들이 인도산당 안주들인데 지금 최신년차 여버디 아니 지 커도 지 삼당비미나 어다지 아주 미가시지 변주지 루루루 체제 안저대로 체 안진 돈수를 체 안드네 체네 지 답대보를 체네 안베 지 총수 삼성으로 지어래데 다른 문제 삼담이미나 아주 드린지 시야기 최당 안다나스테 드린데 진도 좀 제하기 고급되게 상으로 원기 담번 남기 제샤버지 어제래 드린두사는 안데这个个제전기 안에 삼바다 마제외 거네 안지 최진이 제비미나 덴데 심규리아 바자 삼조하다 심규 콜보르지 용거래 삼정도스 마도 지 최다지 가수에다지 데려야지 직감련 지 송도와 최个这个감련지 감보다 런바사지 고 좋아 지 셈리아 지 전화로 보시다 매대교 내가 지 최个这个돼야 되려 최个这감보지입니다 다들 저 뭐이 비치네 지 다 오늘을 루규 금전되게 되지 시 아니 다른 데는지 거진제 랜당 에너지 규지 삼바를 지게 안다나지 세제确定이라야 고랑 가서지 이지지로 봐 대체 지 삼로로 당연 뉴스안에 지 심규리아 전화미다 지게를 진짜 용규스 근데 좀 신내지 최기 측론 봐서네 장도 간다科举出去原件的不你这用安托是吧？样的是。
At the initial stage of the spread of Buddhism in Tibet, and the first phase of the spread of Buddhism, I understand there is no the classifications or division into different spiritual traditions or schools. And in the second phase of the flourishing of the teachings in Tibet, so-called the reformed the phase, and so at that time then the beginning of the different traditions came into existence. First, the great master, Indian master Atisha, has been brought to Tibet and requested to come to Tibet. And through his particular way of teaching, and then the Kadampa tradition began to emerge, and then from the first phase of the unreformed phase of the flourishing of the Buddha's teaching, and the unreformed or the ancient school, and that is the Nyingma tradition, also based on the previous teachings begin to shape up, and thereafter, following the different traditions, Sakya, Kagyu, and the Gelugpa, and in fact, numerous other schools or sects with numerous different names became prevalent or came into existence. And and this is not something that there were all these different schools or sects in India, and they were sort of transported into Tibet. And in India, essentially, there was no classification of these lineages, and so the essential teachings of the Buddha maintained as the tradition of the teaching of the Buddha. But when it came to Tibet, based on the development of the seat of teachings by eminent masters, a particular teaching tradition based on the name of such seat, as well as based on the name of eminent masters, and who, based on their particular style of teachings, also shaped into or formed another school or sect. Nevertheless, even though there are various schools and styles of teaching became prevalent, yet in essence, whatever teachings were given by these different styles or sects were along the line of the teachings of the Buddha, or the teachings of the Buddha intact. And so in this way, that in short, all aspects of the teachings of the Buddha, the scholarship and the practice tradition of the teachings of the Buddha were maintained in the snow land of Tibet to this date. And so, in fact, that right now, because of the circumstances of the world, and because of the teachings having maintained intact in Tibet, in the world now, that Buddhism plays an important role as one of the major religious traditions of the world. And thanks to the great work of the Dharma kings and disciples and the holders of the teachings. And so, with that in mind, right now when we are in the situation of giving and receiving of the teachings, it would be not correct for us to be sort of short-sighted and think that this is happening as a result of some few people organizing it and then just coming together and in a very easy way. And we should recognize or recall that this opportunity is because of the, as a result of the great investment and the resolve and the hard work of the great masters of the past. And therefore, when we receive the teachings, recalling their kindness, it is in fact because of them having maintained the teachings to this day that we have the opportunity to receive. So if there is a genuine appreciation in that way, then there is the possibility of making a more a wholesome connection with the teachings and becoming more sort of open in receiving. Otherwise, receiving the teaching so that it can have a more lasting impact and connection. Otherwise, sometimes when we talk about receiving teachings, we say that the teachings can be sort of very dry or in other dry meaning that other than just parroting of the words or uttering of the words, there is not much in the way of feeling of a living tradition or the sense of substance imbued in it, and that comes across. And so the teaching, opposed to sort of a dry presentation of it, it should have some element of live or living tradition aspect to it, and sort of moisture in some sense that can provide sort of the growth or fertility from that point of view. So If one can therefore and recall the great kindness of the eminent masters of the past, then if that is genuine, then with that, obviously, a sense of appreciation, a sense of genuine respect would come. And at the same time, with the recognition of the profundity and what effort has been gone into maintaining the teachings, then one would also have a great sense of appreciation and feeling of reverence towards the teaching itself. And if these elements are present, then the teaching would have a more living tradition quality to it and could bring some sense of the flavor of the teaching or the substance of the teaching impacting our mind.
energy dination zu ma do ge pha do man de ne chi ma ro nya ba ta de ji ge ka shwe sim ya dong wan zha bu ji yong ro ba ta di jun zhen ge den di jun zhen den ne da chen zhu ma do ba do men zhe wa ta ka shwe a ju 교화군도 안다 남는 데면 취계별로 농주 사다람 유인대로 도시장 공부하는 도시 소문난시 간다들이지게 가셔야다 라마 탐바당 다대야 저 라마 사들리네 에너지 조조지 치 유대 용진 계획신이 소마르베 치 칸사 왜 계획신이 남바된데 칸사데 좀 많이 봐 에너지 다대야 이제 라마 랑게 나와라 샤데베 라마디 다베 랑승고 나와서 말베 다 니비차디 유비 인두스탄에 다 지니 에너지 가셔다 조조단 낭sem기 아니 소소기 도안에 지 랑도르 치아당 안다나시 아니 지 귤리아 즉 대바대안 다 되게 되게 계속 메로송도 다 지기데 강사데데 니마질이야 바지 공부조아르지 다 이미네 낭섬리야 지심규리야베 가르치지 타벨 람드니에르 세네다도 다지 딘디지 샤데베 라마데 바지 수수 생나로를 바지 냐초야 소르지다 에네 디기 가르치에 당화되게 에네 셈레 샤지 지 랑도르 제하기 마자르 제제도 냐초아 수주와 렌두산다 다 조조디 간다지 라마도 로메 제바요아데다 조 라메 때베 랑도르디 수시는 냠레 체마치사 느질이야 라레디게 임베 렌두산에 딘제게다 제바디 엔 마냠바지다 마체바지다 계좀 주면 좋았어.
So in the text, concerning the 10 losses, the fifth one, the Holy Guru who leads one on the path is lost if one is separate from him at any time until one attains awakening. So this concerns that one must be connected to an authentic Lama or spiritual master, and that connection needs to be maintained until one has experienced the very heart of awakening. And so one cannot afford to be separated from this connection until one has attained perfect liberation. So it's along the line of the common verse of prayer that we normally make in all future lifetimes, that one may be connected with authentic Master and never be separate, and therefore enjoy the splendor of the Dharma and go through the different phases of the path and bhumis, and thereby realizing the perfect state of Vajradhara, or the state of Dorje Chang. So it is along the line, or in the spirit of such, that one needs to maintain the connection. And what is important here to understand is that more than the Lama, outer Lama, who is in the form of an individual human being, that one's own perception, and because the Lama appears to one, so from that point of view, one's own perception of the Lama, that is how one perceives the Lama is significant, and so that the Lama is an object of confidence, of faith in one's mind, and that it has more to do with how one utilizes in terms of the inspiration that one receives in the way of that inspiring one to embrace what is wholesome and discard what is unwholesome. In essence, that having an impact on one's mind. And so in this way, that one's relationship to the profound instructions that the Lama has imparted, and because even the Lama, who is an individual human form, is also from the point of view of all interdependent things subject to passing away. And so, under such circumstances, that what maintains the thread of the connection is obviously the guidance, the instruction that one has received along the line of what is the proper dharma that one needs to embrace, what is counter to the proper dharma that one needs to rid oneself of. And so practicing or sticking closely in accordance with the precisely in accordance with the instruction is what maintains that bond or that connection. So that, bearing that in mind, that one should realize this is what important in this relationship.
주번에 답에 주신 동바 덤즈리 영목방에 개왕 시도가 라메친기 라마 예베 똑바든 두제 성성기 습도 돌도바 주톱 남게메가 사모데 미나 깨메 남라 송도 송도바 조아스제 지진 파만은 당외 심기 봉신 돌와바 쉔베랑주 탐에 고순데 탐에 당뇨마도 샤도바스 다데디 팜비 주주이노스 다들마 니와데다 괴베 추주 괴베 추주는 랑게 포츠스비 죄기 시점 뭐주 바시 거지 다딩엔디 되었어 말로레
So His Holiness was reading the other points, and vows and samaya, the ship of liberation, are lost in destruction by kaleshas, carelessness, and adverse conditions. 7th, the experience and realization that one has acquired through the intercession of one's guru are lost in the forest of mental formations. The profound instructions of siddhas are lost by being sold to the unworthy. Sentient beings, one's kind parents, are lost when one abandons them through anger. One's youthful 3 gates are lost in ordinary indifferences. These are the 10 causes of loss. And then the next one is the 10 so-called the necessary things. And the first one is, it is necessary to be independent so that one is not misled by advice.
망원배지 고급 단통이네야다 고급들이 여기 인두산에 근데 고급도 마셔로 제제 에너지 소소 진진 채과데 개좀 이스레 다 내가 괴배 추주 아주 추주버지리야 내버도 지 창괴배 자기를 창고야기 주타마지 송이버데 나들이 말 지시 좋지.
So with regard to so-called the 10 losses, and one needs to go over the points closely, and if one has in the past been the sort of the victim of any of such losses that one found oneself, that one did not cherish a particular point of consideration, and therefore one has become the victim of the consequential loss. And while one can't do much about what has happened in the past, yet nevertheless, as for the future, it is clear that one still has an opportunity to not fall into the same situation, and so therefore paying attention to the fact that one does not suffer these kind of losses in the future. So in this way, applying the mental attitude and resolve of prevention. And then the next one is that 10 necessary things, or 10 things that one must have, the favorable situations that one must have to be able to facilitate one's practice.
다들이야 장기 포즈 심비 죄기 시점 뭐 주버시고요. 다들이야 지 아주 지 체시르샤 아니 저변에 미진나로래야 지 체시르샤 에너지 아니 레겐 고르쌈 다 이미네야 지된 고 가서 윤도 전부다 에너지 토면 망부주와의 민주산에 엔 참자 토면 중세의 전부다 아니 아니지 강의 중세의 대 윤주산에 엔 주소소의 정수디 정수 템포미야체 아니 정수 쇼르체 토면지 체시 샤부다 아니 가서 주지 땡버되게 아니 가서다 준비지 배매르지야 당사 내용이도와 드네 인도산다 미시 템바데 계심이 있어요 미시제지 미 시거르지 정수 템포 용과데 최근 지点 可能是下边那样的계심이 있어요 드네 인도산에 다 통화지 삼로 지 가서다 지 가지스당 여비네 도마지 수수 내가도 마삼 공래야 아니 삼로 땡땡 띠디르스당 아니 내가도 짬 주시데 딩베 쇼고래야 안 바지 지 다가랑베 전진 체제 침비미나 에너지 내가 간지 셰비미냐 템보용아지당 안다 미코랑 레베 미신다 가수에다 간다 지 이시체서부터 에네 지 방부샤스로 지 연구로 봐. 제마다 그 뒤에 이미네 엔도지 가수에지 토메르다 강에 도스테인을 남상고 유아르스당 아니야 이제 제비미나 하고 미코랑지 골라버지 미첩종으로 차도 아닌가 알아봐. 드레이드 제래야 마시 종으로 저다 종으로 시에된 가서 말베다. 종으로 디지잖아.
So along the line of this first point, and the what is being pointed out in this way, that in one's life, generally speaking also, that one has to sort of draw certain plans about what one needs to embark upon. And then one needs to make certain decisions to carry out the process or the stages of that plan. And so, given that the circumstances that one is in can can produce a lot of changes, and there's obviously one would be subject to a lot of ups and downs. And so, if one is not decisively grounded in one's being, if one in one's in proceeding with whatever plan, if one is not sort of properly anchored, then there's possibility of being shaken up and sort of fall apart. And so with regard to that, for instance, initially one should take time to think through as to whatever plans, whatever projects that one wants to embark upon. But once one has done whatever planning and thinking through as much as possible within one's ability, then it becomes necessary that one sticks to that and follows through. Because it also has to do with how one is seen as a person in terms of whether one appears as a person who can be trusted, that is a trustworthy person, a person who is stable and grounded, a person who can actually be invited to be sort of witness to, trusted with witnessing a situation. And it so often happens that even though initially we have whatever plans and so forth drawn up, some kind of decision to pursue it has been made, but when we face whatever difficulties and challenges along the way, which in a way should be quite obvious, then we are easily susceptible to such, and we change, we become easily gullible. And then obviously such gullibility and easily changing and not being able to sticking one pointedly to whatever goal or project in one's mind will then bring about numerous shortcomings or deficiencies. So maybe along this line, I should tell you maybe a story. Maybe probably we might do better with stories.
Uma some Uma Miss Jores. And go Imagilia and a Langal Dudusan, Kangba, Kanru, the individual Kamba, the Uma can be imitated that Kanru in Bechet. And the legend Kanru is to Agilia, Dudusan, Goya, Sir Ren was nearest. Sir Ren was Rai was. 它的大小就是像山羊的头的大小的。它主要是那个大嘛的好这里。
So one time a person journeying on a particular road and on his way he chanced upon the ruins of buildings, of the dilapidated buildings, and as he was going through the ruins, and to his great surprise, he found a solid piece of gold as big as that of a head of a goat.
Ko sere ngo zi nye yin za, ko gata chuen, ande ko, ane, ko zu dhuje, ane ge yon res. Ge ju sa, ane ko, dhugi ji ju sa, sere din jigwa tsabu shibu ji orba. Tere ju sa, da ko lakba na, jigwa shibu ji tuwa chi, ane be lakba na, be kale shibu ji ka ne. Ande ko, ane di zi, ka shwe, menso geb chi peke deb res. Ane ko yan di chi ba ji liya, ane, Lubzich and a Pungugi Chidinglia Machine, Punguichi or the Google Machine, and my Kama Gor Pungu Chidingal Shenche, the order Pungu Gandeshe, and my Kama Gor, and a Limbutan, be Gibu, the Jodi Arrest. Like, then the Gibu continue to Esta. Yes, said and what Jigo Sarche, and again, Casualty, Chomindus, Mindidi Church on the Kibushi on Sarasam. Taco Summertown, Tate Negi said the Kurgi, Limbu did the Punguti Songs Garoch and Assam. Anyway, did Zodi Chilia Chinche, that Kurangi. And the limbo did a pungut and Azorochidas. Near Curania, Sir Ren was the Jesha, Jeggings. So they go ye majesty. When a Kuranga be Sir Ren was the Jegging, the whole easy Marbati. The Yins of other Jugges, Nina, and Golia be limbo to Jay, Pungut Jay. And a good Zodi Sir Ren was the Kichipachi.
So he was so excited to have found this big chunk of gold and so happy, and now he is obviously carrying that and on his way homeward or towards home. And then as he was carrying, given that's a huge piece of gold, and it was the weight of it was weighing him down, and then at some point it started even aching his hands, and so he just had to put it down and take a rest. But while he was resting, he just noticed nearby there was a shepherd, and a funny kind of shepherd. He was riding, on the sort of the lower back of the donkey, sort of the tail end side of the donkey, and facing the opposite way, and different from what one would ride normally, and playing a flute at the same time. So when the guy who has found the gold saw this, he thought, oh, this guy is so happy, that riding the donkey in this particular stylish way, word and then playing the flute. And said, he seems like so enveloped in happiness. And I said, here, and I'm burdened by the weight of this gold. And it would be so nice if I could trade with him, give my, heavy gold to him, and I can ride the donkey and play the flute and have a great time like him. So he thought maybe he should give it a try. And so he went to the person, who was riding the donkey and playing the flute and say, would you, barter with me, and I'll give you my chunk of gold and you give me your donkey and the flute. And of course, initially the shepherd was not convinced. How could this possibly be? Somebody wants to trade this precious big piece of gold to just a donkey and flute. But he noticed the guy was actually, he meant. So then they exchanged. He gave him the piece of gold, and in turn he received the donkey and the flute.
다 미들이야. 미접종들이야. 아니 봉구다. 아니 림부터로. 다그 봉구대 당기 미디 난신체네. 그 봉구디 그 간지 슌기입니다. 싶다. 다 이내 그도 윤슌유민도산에 살아 가시 롱이입니다. 다 드네 그 이슈를 야제 아니 봉구 간지 슌. 아니 림부지 당하지. 다 양결 봉구 간. 다 카마 고르마도네 녜네바 민나시 제바지 슌제. 림부데 당한도면도 따여졌어. 다 이내 그 림부도 윤 당신 거 말아. 나 마신네 푸잡다 마집지도 살. 다 푸망부 쉬겨로다 림부 푸잡 림부건 카타로 맞지체. 개념 버르시. 다 당기드네 당고스도 산에 개 카타로 맞지체. 안 푸잡도 산에 푸잡다 chen 저거도라스. 다고 저거도 카디스 장. 드리시도 산에 다코페 깔라칸다. 이 셈교네 데레 다코 디간 데두산 코타 파지 두두산 코 장부 스토리스 장부 데리아 아니 코 장부 데다 장바지 미지산 장바지 롱지 코 장바데 세네 심심지 세데 데리어스도와 다고 저거다 데베 간에 미디 장바 세베다 통다 람산 코베 시우지 돌라칸 다 민디 집어 가는 민도 스타디 나데베 링부데 단 저건도 에너지 가서 봉구디 굽데네 차가 가서데 개바데 차가치 굽시다나 데레지 주산 다 데레 봉구데 링부데 콜 총야고 쓰었다 사면 에네 그 자래야지 친지 어다 랑기 디디 데 커주데다데 가서데 포바데 아지 좀 저거를 했어 내 봉구다 링부 저랑 대셔스 아, 다들 장부도 영어만 딩에 노부른 보지르다스 노부른 보지 데데 거주데다 네 포바디 나바 소소한 디레스다 니 교랑 좋아한 저거 말했어 다 군이 파시 주시 깨져 망보신도 산 타마타마데 레두스 아다 좀 진짜 이나다 다 내 지금 총아지 깨워서 내 꼴이야 봉구데다 링부도 고바데 안에디 거주데다 안에 포바도 주데 다 다리 그 삼단 가상마디 링부드 뉴두산에 미디산에 링부 간제 땅고메디 라가 주모서 디디스 노도스다 다 다리 오늘 그자네 제네 디 간제 배주 당고스다 가주디다 포바티 다디 레라브레스 교람 미자체 보지기 괴자래야 친제 어다 디링남라 까마산 살라 두주산 에 가르 남라 까마산 살 두주산사 제 베베케 시다는 줄 봐. 아. 다양한데 랑 가르심데 남라 까마산 살 두주산 다간다 사가르 체장야 부. 아베 가르소에 상부 준종기 님들 땅 알베 장부 달베 쇠레 나도 쇠스 되게 잡이나. 되네. 아니 괴나는 마지 되네 저랑직 대용거레스. 아데비 당화 당화들이 디랑 섬쇼 아스. 야스 나다고 코섬 가다죠. 아니 고 미상 첨보지 거와도 삼더니 그뒤 자가치 브레스. 오케이.
So now this stupid person is stuck with the donkey and the flute, and so he tried to ride the donkey the same way, the guy from whom he got, but he actually has never ridden any, animal before, and let alone riding that same particular way, facing the opposite way. So when he did that, and he kept landing on the ground and hurting himself a number of times, and so then he thought, well, at least if I don't know how to ride like he did, I'll ride the normal way, facing the same direction the donkey was moving. I'll ride the same way he does, but at least I should play the flute like, he did, from whom he got the flute. And, but he has never played flute before. So finally he at least got on the donkey, of course, not facing the other way, facing the same way as the donkey, and started, blowing into the flute. And having never learned how to do it, and firstly, not a sound was coming out. And then when it started coming out, it has nothing to do with any, melodious sound. And so, but he kept trying. And when you blow so hard into flute and you don't know how to do it, and so he was getting exhausted and actually getting very hungry from, it. And he was very hungry, and from blowing into the flute so much, he was hurting his cheeks. And so he was so fatigued and felt very saddened. But then he chanced upon a beggar, and the beggar who had gone begging, and then he got some champa and the roasted barley flour, and so he had taken a break and enjoying the champa. And so when the guy who was now stuck with the donkey and saw this beggar enjoying the champa, he thought, oh, what a happy guy, just having such a good time resting and eating, and while me, so hungry and that, hurt from not being able to ride the donkey well. So he went to the beggar, and seeing that, how happy he is, and he has was eating, and while the other guy was hungry, and so said, what about you and me trading, bartering, and I give you my donkey and flute, and you give me your walking stick and your bowl, and for eating and begging food in it. And so the beggar said, no way, these are my precious jewels, and these are the essential elements by which I earn my living or sustenance. But the guy who has the donkey insisted that they trade. He'll give the donkey and the flute, and that he should be given his stick and the bowl. And so finally he was able to convince it, and they did the bartering. And so then the one who has the donkey, he thought that this time he's going to be a little bit smarter than before, because last time he didn't ask how to blow the flute, how to play the flute. And so that was obviously, disastrous. Now this time he's not going to make the same mistake. So he asked the beggar how to use the stick and the bowl, and so he thought he should learn the trade. And so the beggar gave him, the instructions. So you walk with the stick and carry the bowl, and you go to the home of near the home of some more well-to-do family, and there you speak out, and on this something like it was customary, I guess, in those days, something like on this day when the stars are in the right place, and there's all kinds of auspiciousness happening in the ground. The wealthy family should give me, extend generosity towards me. And so if you talk like this, then you will be, provided. You will be given whatever alms. And so this is the way. So he kind of gave him the instruction.
Ane kuya kaya gyabaris ta, tiring namla kamaza sal tuju san, ane ta jinda tuji jen ngaliya tsura nangro jis laris. Ane jira mizanti na mishini, kuzu di deshu shi di yaris. Chilo, luburdu chilo ane tiring namla karma sal tuju san, sambu chunzum res koyan desan, Sura jina sam chin du san, chilo da pango shi tin la de or scope ke jam ha len. Ba za kontra sada chen. Ma chilo de ji song ko ron de dong sha des. Ke kama nam la kama song dan di is. Sen juba ron de dong sha des. Ta yan di nam ji mi ji sam ba sang ro ji ki. En ko le ya ji ma ra de chu ju ri des. Jama chona de su gi wa ma des. Mi zo de Mishi Dusan, and Kurang, Chilo, Namakama Satu Jusans Lana, and the control longer of us. The late Jama Kuran Dusan, that the ring on a Karsadi. The ring Kasa and Karsan Namakama Salang Nale to Bodangale Joa, Mingale Chinaronas, Lauresta. That is a need the nang sinda jili ya chinje tani yang ko tena ski jarsta ta dirin dire be nam la kama nge bata sala tuju nge bata de kale ta mingale kyo da ngale to ngal chinaro silares ko dirin tu ya de mi chansa gyab denge je tores ta dirin de sa ko ro de don jares ta dirin du ti kansor ta kanda quran lo ne khar go yo quran ha go ma ta quran lo ne khar so ji 가르고구예봐. 나지고 드네제네지 니주디즈 총보다가 남상 아니 교화당 샤는 저거 오마르바. 다든다 도도디 에네베 정수 심바. 오네 소소를 가르고구예바다. 소소를 펜바 가르 이미사디. 소소 삼로 덴덴 당네. 에네 가수에 지디 펜바지 이미나. 아니 디기 가수에 펜베 내려야별 가서 주소주에게 애네베 로서 템포체네 애네 무투이네 엔 균경토바 제하고 그래서
Well, so we will wrap this up as his story is taking all the time. So anyway, now the guy who got the begging bowl and the stick, he went to seemingly well-to-do family. And then he started shouting, today on this day of, where the stars are in the right place and the ground is all wonderful and so forth, and, kind benefactor, shower upon me with some of your generosity. And, but at that home, actually, somebody had died. And so ceremonies, ritual ceremonies for the deceased person was happening. And so, when some people came out and saw this guy screaming all these, words, and they, got so upset. And how could you say these things when, such an unhappy situation is going on and you uttering like this and everything. And he got a terrible beating there. But one of the person was still kind enough, and he gave him a little piece of butter and some tsampa and say, go away. But next time, don't do this, don't say this. Next time, and when you go to this kind of place, you say that when the stars are all in the wrong place, the stars are in the wrong place, and in the ground there is unauspiciousness, and me, stricken with poverty, give me something, out of your mercy, and something like that. And so he took that as a lesson, and then he went, and so now he is at another seemingly well-to-do home, and then he started again sort of screaming at the top of his voice, on this day when the stars are in the wrong place, and when the ground has all kinds of unauspiciousness happening, and me, poor beggar, whatever, grant me some alms. Actually, little did he know, there was a marriage ceremony taking place. And then the people came out, and then they felt there was really a bad omen. And how could somebody on this auspicious, time of marriage celebration utter these unauspicious words? And he got a very good beating there too. So the moral of the story is that basically he didn't know what he wanted actually. He has not clarified to himself what is it that he really wanted. He was at the mercy of the chance and the circumstances, and he was sort of a puppet of, and buffeted around by the circumstances of wherever he is, sort of blown by the wind of circumstances in this way. And so again, the moral of the story is that as it's in the line here in the text, that one needs to learn to be grounded. One needs to learn to be discerning. And one needs to learn to be decisive. And that once one is grounded, discerning, and one makes out of clear discernment a decision to embark upon something, that until one has achieved that, one also must have the discipline or the resolve to stick with it, to continue until it's fulfilled. So resolve to stick through sort of the thick and thin of situations so that the final, the desired result is accomplished.
나 니버디 대바의 존주기 라마 담배 가신 주버시거스.
So the second point among the 10 necessary things, it is necessary to practice with faith and diligence in accordance with the instruction of the Holy Guru.
다들이야 재미래 미패질기 대바 칼라요. 나내줄기 대바 쓸라요. 아다 숨보는 신세네. 근데 가신 아주 좀 배배난 가서 니 어리지 미 라게 내줘봐지가 레바 첨부 징딩에 놔 지기 레바 토부 징딩다 되게지 난 니들 누바 쉬우지 유사라 삼사로 지든지 지 셰리 다 통용되나 하다 접시 니들 누바 쉬우지 유사 삼아로 제독 첨부로 제비나 아니 지 누바 채나로 샤네 다들이 제den게 다들이 인도산도나 미패체와 치철로 야 리버를 통비나 리바다랑 이라 바바를 통인디산 디기 현초 되는데 현바를 초신을지 아니 염죽기 대바체 염죽기 대바체 된게 너무 어려웠어 다들 인도산 대방원에 말했어.
So, with regard to here the point being faith, with regard to that, as Chidun Milarepa had said that most people, their faith is on their lips, and but I have the faith within my heart or within my mind. And we, that many times we do become the victim of appearances, and if a certain so-called guru is, has a particular appearance with maybe a top knot and whatever, that wearing a certain very, in appearance, looking like a very holy or spiritual person, and just that appearance as a reason, that sort of holy looking or very spiritual looking appearance as a reason that one feels one has faith. And that is more out of like one's clinging to the appearance. And then one feels one has faith. And so obviously that is not faith in the true sense of what faith should be.
안 당도 이체기 대바 숨숨고 봐. 드네 인도스탄나 대바 이나 바지 대숨부 강롱지 폐체와리아 대숨부 강롱지 이 고야레스.
The characteristic of true faith must be qualified with a sense of the lucidity and yearning and certainty, and at least one of these three qualities should be present as the qualities of the faith.
나 내가 당외 대바스 주산다 조 라마도 군조의 유엔데 통네 아니 이 장게 이 아니 유엔덴티 장네 아니 춘용마 당번는 신체네 가르소는다 마대발라 소바 춘용마 당번는 신체네 마대발라 소바 다 신이 아니 심규래야 지 유엔덴 고마 기룽 된들래야 기름도 송얘기 아니 당외 차서 당외 대봐 다 대한 배는 창den기 처유 통보도 지송도와 차과도 대배 가사기 장기 이 차비유 다 이 차비유 이동화데 아니 통보도 다 내지기 지송도 창den기 유 처유 통보도 보스 아데 배 세보거나 아무다다 장den기 정유 도마다부 다들 가르잖아 봐 여러 봐야 예 다들 어야
So the faith of lucidity should be born out of understanding the qualities of spiritual master and the qualities of the three jewels and the profound and noble qualities, and therefore that it becomes clear to one that these are the real objects of faith. It's like then when murky water settles, and so the clarity of the water begins to surface. And so like that, through understanding the qualities, then it is becoming clear to one that they are the objects of, true objects of faith. Or in more ordinary terms, that when one has sees any object of desire, that one feels the acute desire to have that object of desire similar to that sort of attitude, and so in that way, the faith of lucidity.
That ne, that ni bade ngondo ke tebam. That yun jik dele ya tando ke teba sungudo wa ngondo ke tebam tando ke teba. That ti tarba dele ya. That pena that jik sendi nangxie lo ne, sendi nangxie lo ne jik sendi nangi garchu jambar doche chime tuendo jamru dan lende le ya beba de ngesong le tabache. Bene jik ngesong le tando che. Terebe jik ngesong le tando lo da. 다나시 코에 대화 되게 레벨 로로네 라바숨을 소발라 네 가르소는 베베 코알레 타완 되버체 데네다 란데 이시게 로로데 셴데 셈게네 손데네 베 친족이 냠래라야 랍니 다지 드미 시신이레 가르소 되지 드미레 타완 봐 데네지 타완 봐 시 ane dinde ngeshe thor ne ba she ne ane dinde jing ye bar to thoba chago do samsaru dinde ji be thönyer da ngonde dinde ji chungbo yimine tele ya ane be kasho di ngode de bam tan de ba sungdo ares be sha sha bina komba chutswa wa de bu ji sungdo komba chutswa wa de ta ko ko ka shi ju ko mi mi du san da ko be ji sala me bu ji jene ye be du san de ji 추 가능했다네. 아니면 추처와 더 붙는지 송거다.
So the second one being the faith of yearning, and that is yearning for liberation, and the realistic way to have that instilled within one is seeing the futility of worldly existence, that one develops whatever degree of revulsion towards the futility of worldly existences, and thereby turning one's mind towards that as opposed to the worldly benefits of this life, the future benefit of liberation. And in terms of the phases in which it can take place is that one wants to become liberated from the sufferings of three lower realms, or the lower realms of existences, and in exchange experience more higher and beneficial states of existence, and recognizing the futility of worldly pleasures, and so the feeling, dawning upon the feeling of yearning for liberation from the worldly existence through engaging in so-called the three trainings, and then moving further, that recognizing the limitations of pursuing personal benefit or towards personal freedom, and moving towards working towards the benefit of beings, and recognizing the importance of the benefiting of beings through the applications of, among others, the 6 perfections or the paramitas. So in this way, they clearly, through understanding, becoming clear to one where the things lay, and therefore, developing a certain sense of purpose, and that purpose being that showing one's back towards what is samsaric and cyclic, and moving forward towards liberation. And in terms of example, somebody who is experiencing acute thirst and is in search of drinkable water, sort of in that spirit, then applying the faith of yearning.
寻找的找到还没找到的，大的呢，大的呢，顺不的，但一切别得吧了，一切别得吧是多少呢？有给我来这不得吧就我内因吧的，东边就我内没因吧，拉说吧的，连这个区，大看到准备起的顺不能行，得吧因吧的。连这那么下连这就约不到，没路引不到，但等这个处理啊呗，告诉我这年吧，但等这全部移民呢，俺这里啊别一切告诉我的一切别太巴适，别查啥别呢那边普通马了一段吧都不是个多啊，普通中的做，俺妈的一切是不是多啊？没现在的一切嘛这些。energy karşıya ne kardeşim bu yine Amerika'ya ya bak tam doğa değerli ne Hindistan ama lebe bu mala iyi dön badı bu da dinle bir bezön bir sundu ba.
The third one is the faith of certainty that one's developing a faith that is properly anchored. And in this regard, understanding the workings of the karma through virtuous activities, actions, the result of well-being is achieved, and not the and obviously virtuous activities do not result, in other words, into experiences of sufferings. And so, in this way, just as the awakened one, the Buddha has so wisely shown, laid out the workings of the karma and how the truth of cause and effect is unfailing in terms of the accountability. And so, therefore, that through understanding of the workings of the karma, and that is cause and effect, and the unfailing truth of it, and having confidence or having faith, and that faith being anchored and certain. And so the analogy that can be given is like a baby or little child relying upon one's mother. And what we notice is that normally, this generally speaking, you know, a small child always wants to go back to the mother, that a sense of reliance upon the mother, familiarity, what have you, then would rather go to anybody else. So in this way, like a child or relying on the mother or having faith in the mother in the same suit, one should have faith in the workings of the karma.
In Hindustan, that Lamjin Pesha and Anare, Lavado Jeremy Chigi, Jedanish and Lamjin Dizunanolia, and Lamgi Zawa Shinyan Demba, and Zawa Teba Jongas Che, Zawa Ni Sunadua. Lamgi Zawa Shinyan Dembas, and Zawa Teba Jongas Che, Zawa Ni Sundua, Lamgi Zawa Shinyan Demba, they are Zoda, Teba del Rale de Yorba. The name Dusane that Kondo Shebe, Tebate Sumbu de Lamgizawa in Besheba Chene. That Lama Tembe Gub Delea, Tebasunge, Net Samajigo Guane, and then are the Kachum Stades. Tebasunga, Nengar, Tarche, and Lama de the Kachum Bores. Understand?
So in the graded path of the teachings in general, and then in particular the graded path presented by Rinpoche, and that it's pointed out that the root of the path is the Guru, and And that root of the path of Guru can be only grounded by the having the experience of the faith. And then so at least one of the three kinds of faith is necessary to be able to appreciate how the spiritual master is the root of the path.
다데 라마테베 걸리야 아니 대바숭게게 내 창 제거하다 계셔버렸어. 다 원하 내 창와 지주 컨데스라비 이미나 다 라마 상게수 따와다. 라마 기군 두시에도 따와. 라마 상게수 따와다. 라마 기군 두시에도 따와디 당외 대바. 엔다나시 에네 리소 탐제 지딘의 대베 리소 탐제 라메 tinla tiene chungwa yinba ane ji gyawe ka tsama da ana ji karso nyamnyong tsama la soba le chungwa dar ane sem le yiche nye ba ti yiche be te ba ha dude oho tayang ma dude gyabga na je da lama tembe kawliya 안 대바 숭게기 내 창화전 된고레스 다든 된주 그래서 레스라빈다 라마 상게스 따고 여러분다 상아고리아 라마 상게스도 라마 제군 두시에도 따 야와 탐진 뉴베 다 첩세난다도 뉴베 모세난다도 드리질이야 따고 여비 인두산 라마 제군 두시에도 따와 디차네 안 당해 대봐 아니 직된의 대베다 리베 초베 편연당 아니 리베 차탐제 라메틴을 되는 중앙인바디 아니 상계기베 그다 그는 같이만 섬을 세메가 대단히 중앙은 시 아니 지 셈리야 이체냐 이 이체 돼 봐. 나 단도 못 쉬어래. 근데 라메 공방 응원도 세네. 라메 고방. 따라 라메기 가수에다지 고방원도 세네. 에너지 가신도 응원도 천도이기 삼바 여버체네. 대양 지 가신도 배 가수네. 매바체바. 상에 라메 공방서만 따라 라메기 간다지 계속 뉴스기 연대는 대배제 라메 공방 대더부지 톱나 지마루냐 바로 된대기 셈리야 둔동 슈창고 예버첸 둔동 슈창고 예버첸 에네 디균제는 되는지 라메 가시는 매배 주야 나디 조가라서나 응원도 이렇게 대박 경주 된대지레스 단도나지 라마 템베 급들이야 그 대박 숨게기 nen가 창화 제네 안에 라마 대한테 계신 모레스 디 나네 강 안래 당보비 걸려야 파지 지 당외 대바도 계신 모레지 순수를 내여자 당외 대바티 가르스나 안에 라마레야베 견도 도베 로까니 안에 연den기 차네베 따고 여러봐 견도 도베 로까니 마데발라 소베베 당와베네 추용마 당바네 이제 마데베 용마데서 바 당와르 제네 다든지 당외 이 당외 대배 이 대병 오르죠 당외 대병 오르죠 제과디 개체에서 달래 방법일까 당외 대배 개체에 순위들이 여버려 딱 안들 가지님이네 아니 라말레야 견도 로마가비나 지 지단 라마상게 라메 베나 벤드리용도 베나 갤론 리베 까메 안디 상게를 지 쳔비 겸바다 왜 너무 가여바다 대수다 그 무슨도 통하러 와 그봐 갤론 리베 까메 상게를 왜 너무 가여바 지 쳔비 겸바다 통고이기로 왔다 왜 너무 가여바 이나야 라메 꾸디 네 가서 상게 스테베 견도 기도 말했어 네버도 아니 리니에 진제장 연대도 통해 대바지고 알았어 근데 인도산 대바고 나서는 게 오래서 대바고 나서는 게 오래마도 에너지 라메 꾸디 지부 지 상게할 때 야에네 지질이야 가서 왜네 갤론 리베 가면은 시체네 ane sangi tsimbi genpa de wen domba kan yobala soba tomba re de ngusung tomba ina tandung ane gyungi pumbu doba jile ya tonga jide cho min dosanga nin jabu jabu resha sayar ji xixia barwa tani nyusan ta di gyunze dene sosu gi yili ya ji lama la gyundo lo ka kwa de kechim bushira res tani nyusan tangwa deba kechia re sung menzo ta de ya zamsha yin.
So when one approaches relies on the Lama or the Guru, and one must have the three faith, and that is to cultivate the three faith, and from the learning the Dharma, recognizing that one should approach the Lama as the Buddha, and also the Lama as the embodiment of all the virtue. And so in this way, all that is virtuous, all that is noble is embodied in the Lama. So through that understanding and having the faith of clarity or lucidity, and all favorable conditions, both mundane and non-mundane, all favorable conditions and beneficial situations that one receive from because of the kindness of the Lama, and so in this way, and also the profound words of the truth of teachings of the Buddha also one receives from the result of the kindness of the Lama embodying all these qualities. So in this way, the faith of certainty, and then this being so, therefore one having a strong yearning that one also want to realize the state of the Lama, and similar to that of the state of the Lama, and towards that end one needs to diligently follow as one has been instructed by the kind master, and so with through which one can appreciate the numerous wonderful qualities of the Lama, such as endowed with the qualities of the profound knowledge or omniscience, great benevolence, and the ability to extend tremendous benefit. And realizing these qualities, then one would have a strong longing, a strong yearning towards realizing these qualities of the Lama. So in short, in essence, that one should train oneself so that one's mind is imbued with the three kinds of the faith. And it is said that for beginning practitioner, it's best one starts with cultivating among the three faiths, the faith of lucidity or clarity. That is recognizing where one is, one's own limitations, that one should turn one's mind towards seeing the wholesome and the noble qualities of the Lama, and not becoming a victim of going by one's distorted outlook, and therefore viewing the Lama through that that mired view of one's, and therefore seeing all kinds of faults and limitations. So in this way, one needs to protect oneself from becoming sort of the victims of one's confused and distorted outlook, in training oneself to have the confidence of clarity. And for instance, during the time of the Buddha, the disciple Gelong Likbe Karma. And Gelong Likbe Karma, he must have seen some of the physical attributes of the Buddha, such as that of the long rays extending out of the, from the Buddha's forehead and other physical attributes. But still, that even if he saw all these incredible visible physical attributes of the Buddha, yet he became the victim of his own distorted outlooks and saw it otherwise. So there is being the chances that we could also become the victim of our own distorted confusion and seeing that as the flaws and faults of the Guru or the Lama, so that we have to learn to alert ourselves, sort of alarm ourselves that this could be a situation, and in reality failing to see the actual qualities of the Lama and seeing only through one's distorted outlook and thinking that is what it is about. So given the possibilities of these kind of hurdles, one need to utilize that there are many doors to developing confidence and faith, and one should not sort of make oneself get stuck as if that the Lama is just the physical body, and so that one is limited to giving rise to faith, to that the physical appearance of the body, and there's no other alternative. So one must look and appreciate all avenues through which one can instill and arouse the three kinds of faith.
Private audience genje chidu sane and go sige to jungruba sige nga ngone class ha ju juje juni ba class da ina ko ju ji yo ge ji ti pa xie ju xi chidu sa ju juni che ga so ya class ha ju di ene jilu ti ju class ha jilu ti 제가 드링에 디 다샤 렌체 계란조 class ha ju di ene ge to sipa 가르쳐 제가 다 로데 보충 다 간다야 드린데 아주 진다지기 다들이 예 응원에다 제가 응원에 진이 베인상 안 진다지 지난 사물로야 한 셀라피아 두스레도스 안 제가 셀라니에 버쳐야 예스 안도 제나.
So we have passed the scheduled time for the teaching, and in a way that's not abiding by sort of the rules laid out. But on the other hand, when I give the private audiences in the mornings, that there's a specific time for that, and then around 11:30 is lunch time for me. But since there are so many people who want to say whatever number of things and then responding to them, and then it takes more than that, and sometimes it could be 12:30 or later when I'll be having lunch. So today I'm also able to hold you back from you having your lunch in time. I feel like quite satisfied in being able to kind of retaliate in some sense that and anyway, so today is the actual day of my birth, and so someone has generously offered the lunch, and in the spirit of